There is a significant chance that the United States will carry out another assault on Iran in the coming days, regardless of its shortages of munitions and missiles. No one can know for certain, but the military posture clearly suggests that this is a serious possibility, and the Iranian armed forces are prepared. If the United States targets Iran's civilian infrastructure, Iran has already made clear that it will immediately retaliate against the US proxies in the Persian Gulf that have cooperated with this aggression. Israel is different. The Israeli regime cannot successfully wage a war against Iran on its own. It would need extensive American support, not only for weapons and financial assistance, but literally for its air attacks. Israeli aircraft would need US planes to refuel them while flying toward Iran and returning. That would make the United States deeply involved, with consequences for Washington as well. We saw this during the previous 12-day war. The United States and Israel launched that blitzkrieg attack while negotiations were taking place. After 6 or 7 days, Netanyahu realized he was losing and appealed to Trump for a way out. Ultimately, after 12 days, Iran agreed to halt hostilities. Iran did not accept a formal ceasefire, but the outcome demonstrated how vulnerable Israel was. Today, Iran's military capabilities are stronger than they were then. Its missile and drone capabilities have become more precise, while the United States is running increasingly low on missile defense capabilities, as are its regional proxies. During the earlier fighting, Washington wasn't even talking about shortages, yet it still lost the war. There are no negotiations taking place between Iran and the United States. Trump has been saying for more than 5 months that Iran is begging for a deal, that an agreement is close, and then, at other times, threatening to destroy Iran. His position constantly shifts, so I stopped paying much attention to what he says or posts. I don't think his statements help us understand what is actually happening. What matters more is what the Iranian government is saying and doing. We recently saw a statement from the Supreme National Security Council, and there are also changes taking place within that council. In my view, that indicates that Iran is preparing itself for further confrontation with the United States. The current chairman made Iran's position very clear. The only way this war can end is if the United States brings an end to all the wars in the region. He specifically referred to Palestine, Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq. This is important because it represents a broader interpretation of the MOU. Previously, the agreement referred to Lebanon and other fronts, but Iran is now explicitly identifying Palestine, Yemen, Iraq, and Lebanon. So if negotiations ever resume, Iran is going to take a very firm position. At the same time, there is a significant possibility that the United States could launch another attack in the coming days, and Iran is prepared for that possibility. Ultimately, if Washington wants to return to negotiations or reopen the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's position is that the only way forward is the full implementation of the MOU. The Americans have been trying to pressure Oman to force Iran not to charge fees for ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, but that effort has failed. Iran will impose fees, and it will maintain oversight of the strait. The United States also wanted Oman to persuade Iran to allow every ship to pass without restrictions. Iran rejected that completely. Ships considered a threat to the Iranian people, including those linked to the Israeli regime, will not simply be allowed through. Trump has put considerable pressure on Oman, but that has not changed Iran's position. For Israel, Iran was not fully prepared when the 12-day war began. It was a blitzkrieg attack carried out jointly by the United States and Israel, while Washington was supposedly negotiating with Iran. Those negotiations turned out to be deceptive, while American forces were refueling Israeli aircraft. Yet, despite being attacked day and night, Iran managed to turn the tide after roughly 5 or 6 days. By the 7th or 8th day, the Israeli regime was seeking a ceasefire. Netanyahu was, according to people close to the Trump White House, appealing to Trump for a way to end the conflict. By the 12th day, they had lost the war. If Israel attempts another assault, it will end very poorly for them. Israel cannot carry out an attack of that scale against Iran without American aircraft refueling its jets. If Washington provides that support again, the United States will not be an observer. It will be directly complicit in the attack. The important thing is that Iran is not demanding something outside the agreement. It is asking the United States to implement the commitments it already accepted. If Washington genuinely wants normalization, it has to fulfill its side of the MOU. Until that happens, Iran has no reason to return to the previous situation. The same principle applies to any future Israeli attack. Iran was not fully prepared when the 12-day war began. The attack came suddenly while the United States was supposedly negotiating with Iran, and those negotiations turned out to be deceptive. The United States and Israel were carrying out the assault together, with American forces refueling Israeli aircraft. But despite being attacked day and night, Iran managed to change the course of the war after roughly 5 or 6 days. By the 7th or 8th day, the Israeli regime was seeking a ceasefire. By the 12th day, it had lost the war. That experience matters because Iran is not going to forget what happened. If Israel launches another assault, it should understand that the consequences could be even more serious. Israel cannot carry out an attack of that scale without American support, particularly the ability to refuel its aircraft. So Washington cannot provide that support and then pretend it is simply standing on the sidelines. If the United States helps Israel launch another attack on Iran, it will be directly involved and will have to accept the consequences of that decision. Iran's position is not going to change because of pressure from the United States or its allies. The central issue is still the same. If Washington wants the conflict to end and wants the Strait of Hormuz to return to normal, it has to fulfill the commitments it already made. Iran has demonstrated that military pressure will not simply force it to surrender. During the previous war, the country was attacked unexpectedly and was not fully prepared. Yet after several days, the balance began to change. That experience has shaped Iran's calculations about any future confrontation. Same applies to Israel. If Israel launches another attack, it cannot assume that the outcome will be the same as it expected the first time. And if the United States provides the aircraft, refueling, weapons, or other support necessary for such an assault, Washington will be directly involved in the conflict. Ultimately, Iran's message is straightforward. It is prepared for another attack, but it also has a path toward negotiations if the United States is willing to honor its commitments. The reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, normalization, and an end to the conflict are all connected to the implementation of the MOU. So the question is not whether Iran can be pressured into abandoning its position. The question is whether the United States is willing to fulfill the commitments it already accepted. If Washington chooses escalation, Iran is prepared. If it chooses to honor the agreement, there is a path toward ending the conflict. What Iran wants is not complicated. It wants the commitments that were agreed to be implemented. The MOU already provides the framework, and Trump himself signed it. So Iran is not asking the United States to make some completely new concession. It is asking Washington to honor what it already accepted. The situation in the Persian Gulf is now different because of the actions that have taken place. Iran cannot simply ignore the involvement of countries that supported the American war and then allow everything to return to normal as though nothing happened. The Strait of Hormuz is connected to the wider security situation, and Iran will continue to make its own decisions about how the strait is managed. At the same time, Iran does not need to change its position simply because Washington applies pressure. Pressure has already been tried, and it has failed to produce the outcome the United States wanted. If the United States genuinely wants stability, it has a clear path available. It can stop the escalation, implement the commitments it made, and move toward normalization. But if it chooses another military confrontation, Iran will be prepared for it. That is ultimately the choice facing Washington. Iran has made its position clear, and the next step depends on whether the United States is willing to respect the agreement it signed. The situation has now reached a point where neither side can simply pretend that the old regional order still exists. The Strait of Hormuz has become one of the central issues in the confrontation, and Iran is making clear that it will not separate the question of the strait from the broader security arrangements of the region. Recent developments show that the dispute remains unresolved, with Washington insisting on freedom of navigation while Tehran continues to demand conditions before normal shipping can resume. So ultimately, the question is whether Washington chooses confrontation or diplomacy. That decision will determine what happens next.